Okay, with that, I call the 2,441st meeting of the Milwaukie City Council to order. This evening, Mayor Beatty has been excused, so myself, Council President Anderson, will be presiding over the meeting. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining via the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the City YouTube channel and Comcast Cable Channel 30 in city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address City Council, you may come to the City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you're interested in this meeting, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card for those at City Hall or emailing ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it's time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. We ask that all Zoom participants who intend to speak label their Zoom username to show the first and last names for the record. Translation services are also available in multiple languages. Please see the information on the slide for details. Now, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. The City of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homelands of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Calapooia etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to Indigenous people of this land. A few announcements about some exciting events. Join us for a conversation with local leaders that explores the urgent issues of housing and homelessness in our community tomorrow from 6 to 7:15 p.m. at the Living Library. The panel will examine local services and solutions to those most in need and engage in meaningful dialogue about how we can work together to ensure housing stability and compassionate support for all. Best of all, it features Counselor Kosrabadi, so if you want to see him talk more after this meeting, go on there. Come meet with some of the volunteers who serve on the Milwaukie Arts Committee this coming Saturday, January 24th from 12 to 2 p.m. at the Living Library. Community members will discuss why creativity matters, why art is needed in the world. Artwork from the committee members will be on display and refreshments will be provided. The event is free to attend and everyone is welcome. Volunteer to help fish habitat by placing donated Clackamas trees in the Willamette River, while also helping to plant native plants this Saturday, January 24th from 1 to 3 p.m. at Spring Park in Groton Island. All ages are welcome to volunteer. Instructions, gloves, snacks, and tools will be provided. Transit service changes and cuts are being planned to begin on August 23rd, 2026, as TriMet reduces spending to close the $300 million budget gap. The public is able to plan on those cuts until January 31st using an online survey through various online and in-person open houses. Visit trimet.org/service cuts to learn more and participate. Nominations for the 2025 Volunteer of the Year continue to be accepted. Nominees can be anyone who resides in Milwaukie or is a member of a nonprofit organization or business that serves the Milwaukie community. If you know someone who's gone above and beyond in 2025, please nominate them for the award by February 11th. For more information about each of these events and others, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukieoregon.gov. Call 503-786-7555. First up, for those who haven't seen, we have a very exciting event. The next item on the agenda is Milwaukee's Pet Pal Challenge. Our beloved mascot, Millie, has been looking for a new pet friend using Engage Milwaukie. And after some fierce competition, we have a winner to announce. I'm excited to welcome up our Community Engagement Coordinator, Jason Wax, for a little update. Millie, just make sure you press the button if you're going to speak.
Well, good evening, City Council. I'm Jason Wax, the city's Community Engagement Coordinator, and I'm here with Millie tonight. We weren't sure if Millie was going to join us right away, but Millie made it on time, so we're all here. So for a few months, from October 21st to January 2nd, we held a contest called Millie's Pet Pal Challenge. And it was on our Engage Milwaukee platform. It's really, we had a couple goals in mind when we did this. Engage Milwaukee, we've used for some pretty serious stuff over time. Comp plan, transportation system planning, all these other things, but we're trying to also make it a little bit fun. So we kind of dreamed up an idea to find Millie some friends and pets to be specific. And we also know that pets are beloved in our community, so we wanted to make sure we highlighted some pets. And honestly, right before we choose a volunteer of the year, now this is almost like a pet of the year in a way. So who knows? We may do this every year. We're not sure yet, but we were really excited. We launched it. It was up on the site for about 2.5 months or so. I'm going to go over the nominees. I'm not going to tell you all the details about each one, but if for anyone out there that would like to learn about any of these wonderful nominees, this will all be shared on Engage Milwaukee after this. You can go in and learn all about them. But I'm going to name the 19 nominees, and I'll go through all of them, and then we'll choose the winner and bring them in. They're outside at the moment, so it's going to be a big surprise. So the first nominee, we had Shadow the Love Bug, got 2 votes. Sockeye had 2 votes. We had Chutney, who had 3 votes. Oreo had 3 votes. Teddy McFraz, friend to everyone, had 3 votes. We had James at the Coast. By the way, these names were what was submitted on the form, so I just did them out verbatim. Scout, 6 votes. We had Wade with 7 votes. Stanley with 7 votes. Winnie with 7 votes. Ranger had 8 votes. Mabel from Milwaukee had 9 votes. Freddie the Basset Hound had 11 votes. I do encourage everyone to read these, by the way, after in the future, because there's some pretty interesting information that was shared. Biscuit had 17 votes. Jeeves had 25 votes. Egret had 40 votes. Ear was in the lead for quite a while, actually. We had Togo, the coolest bearded dragon, with 68 votes. That's an amazing photo. Misono, the most mellow cat, 68 votes. And the winner with 92 votes is Kiki and May, the happy, humorous geese. And I think they're going to come inside. Now, let's see. They're on their way. Just so everyone knows, we got stickers made that we're going to distribute in the community. And we're going to, so everyone can have one. They're coming in a... Grab that microphone. Yeah. I was going to give Chinatsu a chance to say a few words. Would you like to tell us a little bit about them?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I'll give it. There you go.
Is it okay? Is it somebody recording? Or maybe, would you please?
Oh, yeah, and it will be recorded actually, too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Chinatsu. My last name is Mori. These are my pet geese. White is Kiki. Kiki means double happiness. And May is brown. She's American buff. Her name means new life or new beginning. I am so honored to be here to meet you all. And thank you so much for having us tonight. What a memorable moment that we made. And I'm so happy that Millie the Goose has 2 geese friends, finally. Thank you once again, everyone.
All right. So I think we have a couple things for you as well. We made a print for you. We have some stickers. Would you like pictures?
Yes, really.
Well, I think we're going to take pictures with City Council up front here. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah,
Oh boy, I'll get on this side of Robert.
all right. You want to put them on the side, please? Does that work? We'll try.
Let's see.
Does that work?
That's even. Look how dexterous you are, Millie. Oh. Here, Rebecca, hold Keith. I love the animal segment. It's the best.
Robert, get a little closer, please.
Oh, shut up.
Perfect. That's amazing.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
You got it.
You're almost missing.
Yes. May? May. Girl, look at me.
It was a good meeting. Oh, the car, it says, and they need a goose.
I will be in council executive session, hanging out with
One, two, the kick.
snuggle them all the time.
You got it.
I got all of it.
I know.
Put one in your chair.
Oh my gosh,
Okay.
like dopamine rush.
That's awesome. I don't want to go over to her house.
Yes.
Like, I wonder what they're like at home, you know?
Well, I was talking with Joseph because I brought Mango to a meeting, and I was like, oh, we're bringing Mango to a council meeting, and she'll just like curl up out here, and it's like, maybe not the best one. Can you imagine?
That's hilarious. That is so awesome. Beautiful. He's very beautiful.
Thanks so much, Millie. Yeah.
Thanks, Millie.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Local government.
Right.
This is how it's done.
Right.
Actual feathers flying through the
Yeah,
Right.
right? I can see the headlines now. Feathers fly at Milwaukie council meeting.
Walks around and find out.
Yeah, thank you.
Next one. That needs to be the next one.
That would be good.
Sure. Oh my God.
Oh, credit.
Small batch.
Philip, if you can believe it, we do this every council meeting. Not- If you can believe it, we do this every council meeting. So, I was just kidding around. Next up, what an exciting segment that was. Of equal excitement, we have our Milwaukie Student of the Month, presented by MHS and MA Principal, Louis Mayer. Do you want to come on up and present us our new Student of the Month?
Well, good evening, board members. I know it's January 20th, but I haven't seen you all. Happy New Year. Good to see you all again. That is a hard act to follow, but yet I do bring excellence from Milwaukie High School, Milwaukie Academy of the Arts, and it's right next to me. I'm here to introduce to you all one of my outstanding scholars at Milwaukie High School, Mackenzie Van Dyke. She's a 4.0 GPA. She's on track to graduate with an honors diploma. Her leadership and involvement, she's huge in student government, and she's instrumental all the things planned for our school to make it the way it is now. She serves on the Principal's Council, National Honor Society, Blood Drive Chair. She was on the School Student Accreditation Panel member. She's on the swim team for 4 years in our high school. And a two-time team captain. Sure. Her community and professional experience, she's a Kaiser Sunnyside volunteer. She's a lifeguard, head guard at that, and swim instructor at North Clackamas Aquatic Park. And advanced academic pursuits, as you can see, she's always working, and it's remarkable of how they can do other things outside of the academics that they're doing. AP Literature and Composition, AP World History, AP US History, Spanish 4, Free Calculus, Government Economics, and Student Government. She has a lot of ways to go with this. So I am so honored and have the pleasure to introduce you all to the Student of the Month, Mackenzie Van Dyke.
Mackenzie, welcome to your City Hall. We've got a panel of folks who have a lot of questions to ask you, but would love to turn it to you if you have any words or things you want to say.
Oh, thank you. I've never done anything like this before. This is exciting.
Yeah. Well, I'll pass it over to Councilor Scavenger to take us away if she has any questions for you.
Thank you. Well, hi. It's a pretty exciting evening, and I'm so glad that you got to see like all of the facets of local government. Congratulations. And I guess, my question is really, you've been able to maintain a 4.0 and you have all these other extracurriculars. How do you de-stress going into finals week?
I don't know. I'm a big procrastinator, believe it or not. I do a lot of things last minute. But yeah, swimming, I like reading, those kinds of things in my free time. I don't know. I just survive, I guess. Try to get through it.
I think that's good advice. It'll take you a long way.
Mackenzie, first of all, I was trying to figure out where I recognized you from, and you were actually the instructor for my little son at the aquatic park.
Really?
Yes. He was the one boy who would listen.
Oh, there's actually a lot of those.
It's funny when you said procrastinator, wait till the last minute.
Yeah.
I actually just recently did that. I had to put a strategic plan together for work, and it took me till 6 a.m. So I get you, but I got it done. That's what counts. And a lot of procrastinators tend to do really good work. So don't let anybody tell you differently. It's impressive what you've done, and I'm curious, like with all this, what's next? Like, have you already picked a school to go to? Have you thought about how you're going to integrate your swimming into your athletic part into your college life, and what's that look like to you?
So I'm going to University of Portland. I'm
Nice.
studying nursing. As far as the swimming thing goes, I'm not really sure. I don't have a swim team. I could join like a club team or something. I haven't really thought a whole lot about that. But
You continue to coach?
yes, I'll continue to work at the aquatic park, I think. Probably not as often, but as much as I can. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Just another example of the fantastic students, and not just the students, but the faculty, the staff there at the high school. What you guys are doing, producing our future. So keep doing a great job, Principal Marin. Best of luck to you. And honestly,
Thank you.
you're one of the bright spots we got moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations, Mackenzie, and I will add my admiration for all that you do. I don't know how you do it, but somehow you do. Take that as a superpower, But I'm sure that going to college will, add to the things in life that you want to do. And I think that studying nursing and the medical profession is certainly a worthy goal that we can all be proud of. We all need dedicated and smart folks like that in that profession. I guess if I was going to ask you one question, from your perspective as a high school student, what would you like? What advice would you give to the adults?
Oh gosh.
Your parents, us? Just think of all the adults you'd like to give one piece of advice to.
Oh, that's a big question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like be yourself. Don't let what others think about you affect you. I don't know.
You sound like a genuine personality. That's a good answer. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you again, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Mackenzie, Your experience in student government, regardless of what you do, I think it's going to serve you well. For the folks in government up here, I'm just curious, do you have any suggestions on what we should be doing as a city, or what could we do to make your hometown a little bit more fun?
I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. I don't know. Not very good at thinking of things off the top of my head.
How about how the city might engage with the high school more?
Gosh, I'm not sure. I know for our homecoming parade, we had Millie the Goose as a part of our parade. I thought that was really cool, just like even like little things like that. I know our mascot and Millie did like a dance battle at some point, like that's cool. If you guys wanted to help advertise things for us, if maybe work together like that, I don't know.
We'll certainly send our posters your way. It's a
Okay.
deal. Well, thank you for just all that you've given to our community. I mean, there's so much giving back that's there in your resume. I know that when you go up to Portland, you'll serve them well, and wherever you go after that, you're going to have a huge impact. So it's been great to get to know you in this little bit, and I'm so excited to see where you go from here.
Thank you.
With that, I think we've got a certificate for you, and just a round of applause for all that you've done. Thank you so much. Okay, Philip, now's your cue. This is the part of the agenda where council will hear from community comments on city business that are not on the agenda. Before we begin, is there follow-up from the January 6th comments, Acting City Manager Review?
Yes, Council President, thanks. There were 2 comments made at the last meeting. One was from Chris Scott. He had some frustration about the recent convenience fee that we're tacking onto credit card and debit card transactions. The mayor addressed some of his concerns there, but I just to go a little bit further why we're doing 3% fee on those transactions. The annual cost the city incurs on every transaction a credit card or a debit card takes is 3%. And over the years, it's gone from $76,000 up to $332,000. That cost has been covered by the city and by other funds. So you could say other utility payers are providing the cover for those funds, for those that use a debit card or a credit card. So the city decided to make it more sustainable and require that those costs be covered by the actual payer. And so that's why we have moved to that fee, and that will happen beginning next month. But anyone who is out there listening and has financial hardship, I know that gentleman spoke a little bit about that. And so anyone that has a hardship out there when it comes to utility fees, I would ask that you reach out to our utility billing staff at utility billing at milwaukieoregon.gov or 503-786-7525. And we definitely will work with you and figure out a plan if you need one. So I just want to say that. And then the second commenter was Lisa McNally Sprague. She had some general comments about neighborhood hubs and development projects out in the Linwood area. She also followed up in an email with several questions, and she's been talking with staff to address those questions. So that's it.
Perfect. Thank you, City Manager Brigdo. For those in person who wish to speak, please submit the yellow comment card found on the table at the back of chambers. If you're on Zoom, use the raised hand reaction to alert staff you wish to speak, and when instructed to, click the microphone button to unmute yourself. If you're calling in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also submit a comment via email at ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information at ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during community comments may be new, this is not the time for discussion. The city manager will respond at the next meeting to comments that are agenda. First up, I think we have Philip Mora.
First of all, my hearing's not super great, so if you want me to hear something, you need to speak up a little bit. But I wasn't expecting the free entertainment that we had earlier. I have a question for the council. Does someone on the council know anything about the safety committee? Do they just do streets, cars, bicycles, pedestrians, or do they do like crime or whatever? Is it mainly
We can
just
have, yeah, so we have a public safety advisory committee that, as part of its portfolio, administers a safe, gives out money to bikes, pedestrians, and safety projects. They also will talk about public safety issues writ large. They'll meet with our police officers. We don't normally get into a back and forth dialogue, but I could have Joseph, our acting city manager, follow up with you, talk a little bit more about that. But if you email any of us, I'm sure we're happy to send you over information and be helpful there.
okay? With that was just a minor point. I have concerns about snow and ice, and I would say, in my experience, Milwaukee does way better than the city of Portland. They have basically gridlock anytime there's snow and ice, and I'm sure everyone has seen the news of people spinning their tires or sliding into other cars or whatever, and they don't do anything about it. Nothing. People still try and drive on snow and ice without traction devices. And I'll quote my dad. My dad said, "You can't legislate good sense." I'll tell you what they do in Kansas City, Missouri. The main streets, they have a little sign about that big. It says emergency snow route. If there's snow and ice, you're supposed to have some kind of traction devices on your car. Or if you get stuck, you get towed off, plus you get a fine in addition to that. But you can drive on the streets with no traction devices. They're not saying you can't drive on the street. What they're saying is if you get stuck there and you don't have traction devices, you're going to be towed off and you're going to get a fine in addition to it. And there's probably some streets in Milwaukee you could say were emergency snow routes, like 32nd Street where there's a hospital. I think one car could probably block that street if he really got messed up. If he got crooked in there, he could block the street. And then, of course, in Milwaukee, they're not going to be going speed. They're not going to be like on the freeway or something. But I've seen people just don't slow down. They're unsafe, and they don't slow down. And I'm sure everyone has heard of saying they lost control on the ice. That's a pretty common saying, but the other way of looking at that same problem is, no, they never had control on the ice. So anyway,
Philip, we're at the point where your 3 minutes is up. But if you have any other comments, please feel free to reach out and post our email, and we'll have our city manager, Joseph, reach back out and provide information about PSAC and our snow plowing procedures. Thanks for coming today.
well, I'm just telling you what they did in Kansas City, and you can do whatever you want. Right? I'm sure you will. Those are my comments.
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
All right.
With that, we can move on to the consent agenda. Today's consent agenda includes minutes of the City Council dated December 2nd, 2025 work session, December 2nd, 2025 regular session, December 9th, 2025 study session, December 14th, 2025 dinner, December 16th, 2025 work session, and December 16th, 2025 regular session. A motion to approve the updated council committee assignments, a resolution acting as the local contract review board, authorizing the city manager to purchase cellular devices and services from AT&T Mobility. Does any council member wish to remove the consent agenda item? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second. So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes. With that, we're on to our first business item, adoption of the tree code amendments. fee schedule revisions ordinance resolution. I think we're calling up our enforcers, so I'll pass it to them. To start, I'm going to call to order the public hearing on the proposed tree code amendments and fee schedule revisions. It's called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to hear the staff report, take public comments, deliberate, and consider the proposed tree code amendments and fee revisions. Does any council member wish to announce an actual or potential conflict of interest? Hearing none, does any council member wish to report any ex parte contacts regarding this hearing action? With that, I think we'll turn it over to our Climate and Natural Resources Manager, Katie Gares.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight, Council. We kind of started this recent tree code amendment journey in July 2025 when Council gave staff direction to prepare kind of two lines of proposed code updates. And so Alfred, our urban forester, is going to kind of quickly walk us through what those proposed changes are. We talked about them again with you all in December, and then potentially adopt them tonight. So without further ado, Alfred.
Good evening, everyone. So as Katie said, we've seen these, just running through again, and consider for adoption. Again, as Katie mentioned, council direction was to research how we could adequately incentivize preservation during development and provide greater code clarity and flexibility for removing trees causing structural and maintenance conflicts with a dwelling unit. We came back with the development code recommendations of developing a significant tree removal fee, increasing canopy mitigation fees, and adopting a rare and threatened species list, and adjusting the unpermitted removal fee. Regarding residential tree code, we decided to add an allowance for removal of trees within 10 feet of a dwelling unit that causes infrastructure damage. And we also added some more clarity on what staff would utilize regarding standards for reasonableness when it comes to alternative construction techniques, alternative pruning, and similar. Okay, on to the significant tree removal fee. This would come into play for any tree over 30 inches in diameter. And again, that is from 30 to 35.99. It would be $150 per inch. And for trees 36 or larger, it would be $200 per inch. The canopy mitigation, we have decided to recommend going from a 30% start to a 40% canopy reduction. Any reduction below that at 8% increments, you would start incurring fees, starting at $4,000 up to $8,000, $12,000, $60,000, totaling $40,000 if a site goes from 40% to 0% canopy coverage. For the rare and threatened species, we have tree board reviewed, and we will adopt administratively by January 2026 again. So that list has been fleshed out. We're doing fine edits, and it should be ready to go. And then finally, we decided to establish an additional fee for unpermitted or recommended, to establish an additional fee for unpermitted removals of rare and threatened trees during development, with the fee standing at $350 per TBH inch. And in regards to the tree removals within 10 feet, removal would be approved even if adverse effects can be mitigated. The caveat here is the trees located within 10 feet of the dwelling unit presents a significant ongoing or unavoidable conflict with the structure as determined by the urban forester. And regarding the standards that staff would utilize for evaluating reasonableness, we have small residential repairs. Preservation is very reasonable when the cost of a feasible alternative is 20% of the directly related project cost. In cases of infrastructure, sidewalks, utility, preservation is typically reasonable when costs are less than 3 times the cost of removal and replacement of the subject tree. And finally, in the case of significant trees, again, 30 inches TBH or larger, Preservation is reasonable when costs are 5 times the cost of removal and replacement. And again, that reflects the high value of these significant trees. Additional code updates, recommendations from the Equity Urban Forest Implementation Plan engagement that is currently underway. And based on the results of that, we may come in and make some more suggestions. And again, after we run this potential adopted code, we would come back and suggest potential refinements based on feedback, the way it actually works, and things of that matter. Any questions?
Yeah. Thanks. Couple questions. And I'm not trying to get too in depth in the weeds. I'm just food for thought and something to think about. Because it sounds like we are going to have to come back for additional changes to the code. You know, I thought about a lot about this, and it wasn't until I drove down Stanley going north and I saw that huge tree in front of one of their developments that I started really questioning how effective this is going to be. So that tree, for the rest of the council to know the cost of that, because they're taking that tree down prior to this going into place. Do you know the dimensions of that tree, please?
I do. It was a 36-inch Douglas fir.
How tall was that tree?
About 130, 150 feet.
Okay, you paid $400. That's before this code. You want to know what they would have paid with this code? $7,200. So when I heard that, that made me go back to what you mentioned last time, Councilor Massey, when you said that your concern was developers passing that cost onto the cost of the home. If you have a $400 fee, the likelihood of them passing that cost on is probably 0. If you have a $7,000 to $10,000 fee, the likelihood of them passing that on to the buyer is probably 80 to 100%. So once again, we're at a nexus. So I'm not trying to change things right now. I'm a little hesitant to even implement this because I don't want them to start passing on that cost. But there's no way that a tree that size should be $400. My intention of this was I was hoping that it would be like 40,000 was the start. Because we're sitting here, we've talked about so many times where we've appraised these trees for being $1 million plus, but we're charging 7,000. So there's a little bit of like, we're stepping on our toes quite a bit. I think there's so much, even with the residential tree code, there's a lot of some issues with that. I actually have somebody right now, a neighbor of mine, that has to go to court with their neighbor over a tree. And that's a whole different thing. But it just made me start thinking, and again, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but maybe we should think about simplifying how we're doing this and just make certain trees at a certain diameter and a certain height unremovable. Like that 100-foot tree at 36 inches should not be removable. That developer should have to rethink what they're building. If they don't want to build it, then they don't build it. And then what we could do is then apply a residential tree code to an affordable housing developer as an incentive if that was the only way to develop it is to remove that tree. And we could apply them to a simpler tree code that isn't as strict. But 7,200 is not going to move the needle. It's going to do exactly what Councilor Massey said in the last meeting. They're just going to pass that down to the buyer. And it's not, yeah, 100 feet, man. I was like, oh, it's over 30 feet. I'm way off. So I'm hesitant about upping these fees because of that. And I'm hesitant also because this just isn't doing enough. I just think that we should start thinking about maybe just making certain tree sizes cannot come down. Because how much are we losing in canopy with that tree?
So in that particular property, the reason it was $400 is that is even with the removal of that tree, the canopy reduction did not qualify on our fee schedule. It's still above that 30% threshold. So that 400 is just standard processing where we review the plans, a couple of site visits here and there, initial, middle, and then the final site inspection. That 7,200 that Councilor mentioned would actually just be a significant proposed fee. That is the only one that I'm applying this case. But you are losing a decent
tree, obviously, with that.
Nice.
Yes.
It's nice. I drive by every morning to drop my kids off, and it breaks my heart because, you know, if you have an opportunity to do a couple of things with this tree code, push back on development that's overpriced in some cases, market rate development, right? But also have a chance to really value those trees that, I mean, in your profession, how long does it take on average for a tree that size to grow?
It takes decades. And the truth of the matter is, replanting is nice, it is needed, but you will not replace the benefits lost by replanting 4 or 5 saplings. You won't recover it for decades again. Right? That takes time. The trees that you do plant, there is no guarantee of survival for a lot of them. Right? So, I mean, there's variables involved. You're losing that. And on top of that, all of those decades that you're waiting for those newly planted trees to reach the same level, you're missing out on those benefits as well. Right? So if you're losing that immediate benefit and you're having reduced benefits given throughout the years until it reaches that level, if it reaches that level.
Yeah. Damn. But yeah, that's again. I didn't want to like get into a whole debate about it. I'm fine with the code language cleanups and stuff, but I'm not sure about implementing these fees because I think we might be creating a whole other problem potentially. And honestly, Councilor Bassi, you said it last time, and I wish I did the math. I wish we gave an example. We did a scenario at the last because it probably would. I probably would have said this at that time, and I hate staff using so much time, and then we get here and then we're like, oh hey, well you know what? We don't think this is gonna work, so I don't want to stop. I'm one of 4 here, so I don't want to stop it. I am a little bit hesitant with those fees.
Yeah, so there are some times that when during the development process, when we outline like the proposed fees or what it would when someone's reducing their canopy below 30%, that they go back to the drawing board and move that ADU to a different part, or they change that setback. So that fee is a very effective method for that tree retention. And so I think in those cases, when we're seeing that extra incentive to preserve those large trees, that would be incredibly valuable when we're in that like negotiation component. There are some cases where they're long past that, and the fee is, from kind of anecdotally what we hear, kind of a drop in the bucket of the larger development, depending on the size, and for the amount of additional housing units that they're putting on a lot just does not can't work with how many trees they have on the site. So during the development process, there are those kind of 2 distinct paths that the developers are going down. Our development tree code also does a lot more than just the fees and trying to encourage that preservation. We are also very effectively and strictly monitoring like how folks need to set up their construction site to make sure those trees are actually preserved during it, and then what soil amendments do they have to do afterwards, what different mitigation options, and then the replanting. And so the kind of thought to use the residential tree code at times during the development tree code, I would say they're apples and oranges in terms of like what all is housed in the development tree code. With the current development tree code options that we're putting forth, we are maintaining the separate fees or the separate fee schedule for affordable housing development that we have currently in our tree code. Right now, those are like half the cost of, if you want to go to the increase the canopy mitigation fees. One more. So the existing fee structure, where they all are 4,000, if it is a qualified affordable housing project for the city, those are all 2,000. So the max that affordable housing project would pay is 8,000 versus the existing 16, and then the proposed fee structure tonight would be at that 40,000. So that there is a significant additional incentive for like the city's kind of public what's the word I'm looking for? Like the public interest our city has in that affordable housing development. So that incentive will remain in what we currently have. I guess one more last thought is that one of the things that it sounds like you're describing with wanting to ensure that a tree cannot be removed sounds like a heritage tree program. So one thing we don't say in our tree code, even on the residential side, is that like you cannot move this tree. We say you can if you pay this really high fee that goes to kind of all of us in their great programming and planting, and hoping that will be a strong enough incentive. The heritage tree program on the other side, which is currently in our urban forest management plan, is it's like a land use type decision or process that designates that tree that it cannot be removed. And that is something that property owner decides, and then that carries forward even if that property owner sells their tree in the future, that tree is protected. You are like selling the development rights and removal rights for that tree. One of the reasons we have talked about a lot with Tree Board on advancing a heritage tree program or something like a significant tree fee is kind of twofold. One is the administrative burden of heritage tree programs. It is a really big lift for a very small urban forestry team. To track those application processes, and then also the tree board would need to kind of shift some of their bylaws to then be the approving, like receive those applications and approve them. All doable if we want, and kind of what I see when I walk around Portland that has a heritage tree program is that they have little plaques on where they are, and most often they are in the really well canopied higher income neighborhoods because they are from folks have to go through an application process through the city, advocate on behalf of their tree, and we see that less in the low canopy neighborhoods in Portland. And so what we did with the significant tree fee is that 30% DBH is the one of the criteria, the size criteria for the heritage tree program in Portland. So a tree is, can be under consideration if it's 30 inches or higher, and kind of there's some additional criteria there too. So we used this approach and that size cutoff to be a similar process, but not make it so onerous on the residents to have to do this application process.
My question is that the heritage tree thing sounds too complex. Why can't we just 36 inches round diameter and over 30 feet or over 25 feet is not allowed to be cut? Just simple. Is that not legally allowed? I mean, we're kind of already saying that.
Yeah, I think I really appreciate your comments, Katie and Alfred, and your thoughtful approach here. I think what I said last meeting, it kind of still stands. There's this nexus between the development density we want, and then also the tree canopy and these old growth trees that I want to keep. I don't know at what point those butt up to where a person can't develop their lot in a way that they're allowed to by law, and that it becomes a taking at some point. That's one thing I don't have any sense of that.
But isn't that difference between a development code and a residential code? Because if I already own my property and I tear my house down and rebuild, that's not the same as me developing a 110 unit or putting 4 units on a property and then.
Right. I don't think that's a distinction that matters, because the developer still owns the property. There's an owner to that property. So there's some banning outright from taking down trees will require some further analysis, both legally and administratively, how we would do something like that. So it's not quite that easy. heritage tree programs are programs I think the jurisdictions put in place to help protect the resource. But you got to remember, when you're telling somebody your 36-inch tree is a public resource or a piece of public infrastructure that you're requiring a person to keep on their property, it's kind of a weird analysis, but there's some taking analysis that goes into that, and we'd have to take a look at that. I can't frankly, and I don't give legal advice on the dais, so I can't really comment on my thoughts on it, but it would definitely be a deeper dive than just saying outright that they're going to do that.
I appreciate that because I still don't think that our tree canopy has reduced since we put in that goal of 40%. So we either got to get rid of that goal because I don't want to in a couple of years by the time that goal's supposed to come due say that we failed. So if we know we're on a failed trajectory, why are we still going down this path, right? So either we get rid of that goal or we do something or we call truth to the field. I don't know. I mean, I just don't think that we're not going to meet with this or the tree canopy. We're going to fail on both. Is what I'm concerned about.
I would just say these issues aren't unique to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
These types of things have been considered across the country to varying degrees. And so, if that's a direction council would like staff to look into, we can certainly look at that in analysis. And it's from a legal perspective, but also administrative. And so we need to look and find what that balance is. Because in one side, you're correct, we have lost some tree canopy. But on the other side, we built some very important housing that we needed, right? So one hand can't shake without the other, right? So I think it's really interesting, and that's the balance staff's trying to strike when we look at these things.
I do think, Mr. Prosperati, you have an interesting point. Or I guess one thing that I'm thinking, if you have a tree that costs $75,000 to cut down, the developer will spread those costs across all the units that they're developing. Imagine a similar scenario where a developer buys land for $300,000. They want to develop 3 units on it, but we can't cut down the tree, and so you're only able to develop 2 units. That $300,000 cost of land that would have been spread between 3 units is spread between 2 units, and so that extra $100,000 is now spread as opposed to $7,500. I think that, frankly, I struggle. There's totally a tension here, and I'm okay with making it so developers have to pay this extra cost, or the cost of producing their housing goes up in order to protect these trees. I do think you have a good point. The price tag, frankly, I think should be higher than $7,500, and I want us to revisit this. I think the thing that I would impart on all of us on the dais today is I think it's really important that we pass this tree code tonight. You saw last time as we were debating the tree code, developers took advantage of the deliberation and time it took to develop the tree code and ended up clearing lots and preparing ahead of time for the changes that would come. And so I think it is really important on us to act quickly tonight to prevent that sort of thing happening and then to visit in the future. And I would absolutely be open to what is a certain size of tree that we want to remove altogether. But I think it is important to think about the cost there. I guess all that to say, the question I have for staff is, if we pass this bill tonight, does it go into effect tomorrow, or what's the timeline for implementation?
So we have prepared the ordinance fee schedule resolution to be passed and made effective immediately under an emergency declaration. So it would be effective today.
Okay, appreciate that. Councilor Roddy, you ready to respond?
Yeah, just the last thing. Just on your scenario that you gave. First of all, I hope the developer, before they buy a $300,000 piece of land, does their homework and realizes they are allowed to build on that. That's not on us. Second of all, 7,500 is a lot easier to spread across properties than 100,000, and that's the deterrent. Because you can't just say, okay, I gotta pay 100,000 to cut these trees down. I'm gonna add 50 grand to this one, 50 grand to this one. If they're not worth that, because remember, real estate's not what you want to sell it for. Real estate is what the market is willing to buy, right? So with that logic, if the market only says your house is max, you can sell it at 400,000. You can't just throw 50 grand on top and sell yourself for 450. chances are you're going to do that anyways. And through negotiations, you're going to get your 400,000. So you're going to lose that 100 grand anyways. That was the point of having it as a dollar. If the developer was to buy that, they're not going to buy it yet. Let's say they go in to buy this property, they do their due diligence, they realize that the only way they're going to get it is if they cut that tree. That's going to cost $100,000. That developer might say, well, hell, what I'm building I'm not going to be able to spread that into the values. I'm only building 800 square foot units. How much can I sell these for, right? So the hope is that instead of buying that lot and going through all that, cutting down that tree and then pricing people out even further, the hope is the developer turns around and goes the other way, and then affordable housing developer now steps in and says, I can do this, and I don't even need to touch that tree. That was my thought in raising these significant fees to push back on a bunch of market rate development that isn't selling, it's pricing people out, and potentially retreat the deterrent on whether we build another market rate unit or another affordable housing unit. So that was really why, the market's only going to take what it can. You can't just build an 800 square foot house and say you want to sell it for $700.
I think that's fair. I'll respond to that in a second, but first, bring questions for staff. And I realize that we towed the line into deliberations. Are there other questions that people have for staff while they're here? Okay. Thank you for coming up today. I'm going to check what my script says I should say to you formally, but I appreciate all the work you put into this code. It really is. I mean, we're in a new frontier with our code, and I think we already have one of the most aggressive tree codes in the state, and you're taking us even farther. So I appreciate all the responsiveness you've had to our residents and questions you've asked. Let's see. If there are no more questions, I will entertain a motion to close the public comment part of the hearing.
Move to close the public comment period. Did we skip over taking public comment?
That we did. Look at this dictatorial approach. Yep. Does anyone wish to comment on the proposed tree code amendments and fee revisions? No one? Okay. With that,
We do have a Zoom audience. Just so you know.
okay. Does staff have any response to the testimony? There was none. Let's see, we can go forward and if there are no more questions, I will entertain a motion to close the public comment part of the hearing.
I move to close the public comment on the tree code amendments and the fee revision hearing.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes. The public comment part of the hearing is closed. Now we can move to council discussion. Is there any other council discussion? I might say just a few things to flag for us to come back to when you do come for a revision. I do want to revisit this affordable housing fee or the carve out. I want to make sure that affordable housing is still able to come, and any additional costs that we have on affordable housing developers, it's not like they have infinite pots of money. I want to make sure that this is still tenable for affordable housing to be built in the city. And so revisiting that, taking conversations that our development team and land use experts are having with those developers, I think will be really worthwhile. I think we should revisit if there are trees that should not be able to be removed or a certain size. I think that Councilor Body is right. A heritage tree system seems really difficult. I understand the taking clause limitations, but I think in light of the changes that we're making, I think that's something to revisit, as well as a discussion of if scaling the fee for 36 inches or greater would be appropriate. Like I said before, I think it's really important for us that we pass this tree code tonight, so that we don't see developers take advantage of our deliberations, however long they might carry on. Other deliberations or discussion? Okay, with that, I think I will entertain a motion to approve this ordinance.
I move for the first and second reading by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending municipal code MMC chapter 16.32 tree code for the purpose of strengthening tree preservation during development and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Councilor Massey moves that for the first and second reading by title only, adoption of the ordinance amending municipal code chapter 16.32 tree code for the purpose of strengthening tree preservation during development and declaring an emergency. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. It passes, but not unanimously. Since the voting was not unanimous, the ordinance must be read at 2 separate meetings. Acting City Manager Briglio, please read the ordinance in one time in full.
An ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending Municipal Code MMC Chapter 16.32, Tree Code for the purpose of strengthening tree preservation during development and declaring an emergency.
Second reading and adoption will be set for the next council meeting on February 3rd, 2026. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution revising fees.
Move to approve the resolution revising fees and charges and related consolidated fee schedule for fiscal year 2026.
A second.
Councilor Massey moves to approve the resolution revising fees and charges and updating the consolidated fee schedule for fiscal year 2026. All those in favor say aye. Let's vote this one out and then we can talk about revisit. Oh, you're thinking, okay, aye.
Do you have process
Yeah.
clarification?
Yes. Point of order.
Yep.
What we just voted on was what?
What we just voted on, wasn't that, what, was that just the language? Yeah, right. Oops, point of order, I think because we have to have a second reading on the code amendment package, the resolution for the fees is tied to the code, which won't be effective until the next reading, which could change. You guys might not pass it next time, like you have a second reading it has to occur. So are we voting on 2 separate things right now? Yes, I think the resolution is tabled until a final decision on the code amendment package. Right? So because you passed in the first vote, you had non-unanimous vote, you now have to vote, you have to do a second reading, right? Right. Only after that does that code then become adopted. And adopted, if it is adopted, you would adopt the resolution. Right.
Yeah, changes until the original proposal is approved.
The fee changes, yes.
Correct. So fee changes will come back for the next meeting.
So with that,
Yes,
Councilor Massey, you'd like to rescind your motion?
Withdrawal.
Okay. I think that's all to be said here. Alfred and Katie, and we'll see you on February 3rd. Thank you.
Deal. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
We're a little ahead of schedule. Thank God Vera is here. We're going to move to adoption of housekeeping code amendments. As Vera comes up, I just want to give you kudos. I'm so excited the city is doing housekeeping amendments like this. This is such a good way to do governance and just honestly, great job to the planning department for this. This is so exciting to see.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of housekeeping amendments. A little inside joke.
You're totally right. I didn't do my job. The public hearing on the proposed code amendments is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to hear the staff report, take public comments, deliberate, and consider the proposed housekeeping amendments. Does any council member wish to announce an actual or potential conflict of interest? Does any council member wish to report an expected contact regarding this hearing action? With that, we can turn to Planning Manager Vera Colias.
Evening, council. Thank you. Here to present the proposed code amendments for a suite of housekeeping code amendments. In a couple of months, our senior planner Ryan Dyer will be back here with what we're calling policy light. So we have sort of a gradient of code amendments, but these are housekeeping ones for tonight. The goals of this package of code amendments are clarification in various sections throughout the code, consistency with state law where required. The intent is not to change policy with these code amendments. Process thus far, we had our public hearing with the Planning Commission on December 9th, where they recommended approval of the amendments. We're here before you tonight. The code commentary with the proposed code amendments was posted as required with a 30-day notice. And the 35-day notice was posted with Metro and with DLCD as required as well. Okay. Starting off with the proposed amendments within Title 17, the general amendments, apologies. So this is just a slide to talk about some general amendments that are happening throughout. We're replacing shall with must, where we're touching the code in those sections. We're adding triplex and quadplex where only duplex is noted. We missed a couple of parts when we were doing the House Bill 2001. I feel like we'll be doing that for quite some time. But the code pre the House Bill 2001, we did have specific call-outs for duplexes, and we didn't do a good find and replace. So we're doubling up with its duplex, it's also triplex, it's also quadplex. And then there are a couple of sections in the code where we did not remove references to the Design and Landmarks Committee. So the DLC, which does not exist anymore, was still, there were some holdovers language, so we wanted to clean that up as well. Okay. We have some proposed amendments within Title 17, our land division code. We are proposing to add or designee for signing authority, particularly in sections where the city engineer is identified to sign final plats, for example. With the new reorganization of city government, generally it's actually the assistant city engineer who would be signing those final plats, because that's the position that's actually reviewing plats for land division applications. The city engineer is at JCB mostly working on the CIP projects. So by adding or designee, we have some more options for who can sign final plats. We are adding some language, proposing to add language related to building permits and middle housing land divisions. This is in relation to recent state law that allows for preliminary plats for middle housing land division to be submitted before, during, or after the submittal of building permits. That's a change. So we wanted to make that clear within our process for middle housing land divisions in our code. We would like to revise plat notations for middle housing land divisions for compliance with the county surveyor requirements. Under the original middle housing land division law, there were some notations that were required to be placed on plats, but the county surveyor and the survey section of code would like to have those be conditions within the decision for the middle housing land division, but not actually noted on the plat. Some of those notations are encumbering plats for future situations that the county surveyor is asking surveyors to remove from those plats. So I'd like to not get into a bind sending developers over to the county surveyor and then having to redo plats. So it would still hold because it's part of our decision for the middle housing land division, but it's not actually notated on the plat itself. And then again, as a land division, revising the review process to reflect state law, our current code. We've been administering the state law appropriately, but middle housing land divisions are not a type 2 review process. They're their own process. So we're removing the reference to the type 2 review process for that section. Any questions about the Title 17? Thanks. Okay. We have a couple of definitions that we're proposing to revise, some clarifications regarding lot coverage, the definition of front lot line, and the definition for cottage cluster. We wanted to make sure that our definition matched, for example, of cottage cluster, that it matched the cottage cluster code itself, that cottages can be attached. We didn't have that in the definition, so we're trying to reduce conflict in the language of the code. Okay. We are proposing that in sections 19.301 and 302, so that's our moderate density and our high density residential zones, that we would reduce the street side yard setback for townhouses. And within the staff report and here on the screen, you can see an example of one of our tax lots collections where we have in various sections of the city, we have a lot of underlying tax lots. Which were platted many years ago, effectively as townhouse lots. This has come up before, where the Jackson and 52nd townhouse development, they needed variances to address the street side yard setback because they weren't allowed to build to the lot lines as they would have normally because of the underlying lot lines. We are proposing to reduce the street side yard setback so that it would match the regular side yard setback of 5 feet for townhouse development, not for plexes or anything else, but specifically for townhouse development to reflect that construction type. Couple of pictures. The lower picture is the 52nd Jackson townhouses that were constructed last year, I believe. And then the upper picture is an example of a corner lot in Portland. Actually, it's on Duke. Everybody's familiar with the neighborhood, but to show you an example of a townhouse development with a 5-yard setback, so you could see kind of what that looks like, the relationship of the building to the sidewalk. We have a street side yard setback. It kind of feels a little bit like a front yard setback. It's intended to reflect a relationship of the building to the sidewalk, but it creates a barrier for townhouse development, particularly for those platted underlying lots. So we would like to propose that be reduced to the 5 feet. Again, limited only to townhouse development. Happy to answer any questions. I think this might bring up something.
That's fantastic.
Oh, that's good. Okay. All right. We can come back. Moving on. All right. Staying in 301 and 302, again, our residential zones. Couple of language cleanups regarding language specific to duplexes for lot coverage bonuses. The holdover from old code, so we'd like to remove that. The lot coverage bonuses covers all middle housing and single family as well. And we wanted to revise the language for a lot coverage bonus for ADUs. Our current code only talks about detached ADUs. We would like to reflect detached ADUs as well to make sure that they benefit from that additional lot coverage bonus as well. In the Willamette Greenway, we have a list of exemptions of the kind of development that you can do to be exempt from Willamette Greenway review. And it's a little unclear, so we wanted to clarify that within that list of exemptions are accessory structures that match the accessory structure limitation for square footage and building permit requirements. So again, clarification to make it clear when people ask us if they can build a shed, we can say yes and move on from that discussion. Staying with accessory structures, we have proposed some revisions to the language for perimeter fences and maximum height, trying to confirm the definition of a perimeter fence in the side and the rear lot lines, so that we can clarify that location with fences and their maximum height of 6 feet. In the site design standards, we have some language that needed to be cleaned up regarding flag lots. Where the language is proposed to reduce the minimum width for an individual accessway or driveway on 2 or more flag lots, the math didn't work. If you have abutting flag lots, you can have a 25-foot wide pole for the shared accessway, but then the code requires a minimum of 15 feet for each individual accessway. So you can't have 30 feet within 25 feet. So we wanted the math to be reconciled. So each individual accessway would be 10 feet, which also matches the public works standards for minimum driveway width for an individual dwelling unit as well. Okay. Several revisions proposed within the building design standards section for single, detached, and plexes on 505.1. We're proposing to revise and clarify some standards for expansions of street-facing facades to make it really clear what standards you have to meet when you expand your street-facing facade. The language wasn't clear. We wanted to clarify the applicability of the base zone standards to conversions to plex units. You can convert an accessory garage, for example, into an ADU, and you don't need to meet the setbacks because the structure is already there. We don't make the same language consistent within 505.1 for conversion into a plex unit. So we wanted to clarify that if you're converting an existing structure into a plex,
unit, you can do that, and it's okay if you don't meet the setbacks because it's an existing structure. We are proposing to remove some language for plexes that conflict with standards for single detached units. There are a few sections that talk about sustainability requirements, where for recycling and trash and those sorts of things. We've been advised by HAPO that we need to have the same design and development standards for plex development that we have for single detached units, and we don't have those type of standards for single detached. So we're proposing to remove that language so they are all the same. Try to avoid as much conflict with HAPO as possible. Again, there's no new language except any of the state law complaints that we're trying to retrofit in there. Feels like a moving target sometimes, but I feel like we're on the right track and making sure that we're clear with those folks. Okay. Within the design standards for cottage clusters, we're proposing to revise the language to remove and clarify languages related to attached garages with cottages. That at the very, even when we brought in the new cottage cluster code with the House Bill 2001 amendments, it was never the intent to allow attached garages with an individual cottage. You can have a garages as part of a cottage cluster development, but the idea was not to have a cottage with its own garage. But there's some holdover language from the old cottage cluster code that conflicted with that. So we're proposing to remove that language to make it very clear that attached garages or individual attached garages are not permitted. We did have it in the original code packet that went to the planning commission. We had language that was intended to clarify that attached cottages did not mean stacked cottages. But in discussion with HAPO, we've removed that proposal because we can't not allow stacked cottages as part of the new code language. We're not, it's not clear when a stacked cottage development might be proposed, but we can't disallow them. So we just removed that proposal. We do allow attached cottages, however they might come in. We'll figure that out. Stacked would be allowed, yes. They wouldn't be allowed to be divided in a middle housing land division because lot lines don't float in the air. But if someone wanted to propose a stacked cottage, they could. Yeah, as long as that met the requirements. Okay. Any questions about? Okay. All right. Non-residential development, 505.7. Still mentioned row houses. So again, trying to make sure that the language is clear and is consistent. So replacing the townhouses, and then clarifying that the applicability of that section of code does not apply to the downtown mixed use zone. The downtown mixed use zone code is what applies to the DMU zone itself. So we want to make that clear. We are clarifying a couple of different sections related to manufactured dwellings and manufactured dwelling parks. 506 and 910.3, reflecting state law. We had a couple of pieces of language in there that was in conflict with recent state law regarding minimum lot size for a manufactured dwelling park and what kinds of standards we can apply to manufactured dwellings. Again, they have to be exactly the same as the single detached. We still had a couple of things regarding aprons, and again, the minimum lot size that was in conflict with state law. So we wanted to get rid of that. And we want to clarify a piece of language within the home occupations code or the home-based business code, clarifying that the owner or the operator would be allowed to operate a short-term rental. We were specific in our code that it had to be the property owner itself, but we wanted to recognize that someone who lived on the property but didn't own the property could still operate a short-term rental. That's for them to handle with their landlord, but we didn't want our code to get involved. That. Okay, and the last section, some amendments regarding wireless communication facilities. We wanted to revise the list of exempt facilities per FCC regulations. Again, those show up, and we want to make sure that our code is consistent with what kinds of facilities do not require land use review. And we wanted to add standards for small cell facilities, usually ones that look like little dorm fridges. attached to bolts. We didn't have any standards for that, but we do in the public works standards. So we wanted to pull them into the into 904.10 to make sure that we so that our zoning code was talking to the public works standards as well. And then finally with the ADUs in 19.910, we wanted to clarify the applicability of the standards for a standalone ADU and for structures containing ADUs. The way we apply our code is that if a structure has an ADU, it might also be a garage, for example, the ADU standards are the ones that we apply to that development. So that we don't have folks looking at the accessory structure code and the ADU code. Everything, if it has an ADU, it lives in the ADU code, and it keeps things simple. And we didn't have similar language or consistent language between the variance section of the code 19.911 and 910 section for ADU. So we want to make sure that those talked about what kind of variance you could request to increase the size of an ADU. We wanted to make sure that those were the same. Our staff recommendation is that council vote to adopt the proposed amendments. Again, the planning commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of the amendments. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Have we received any additional correspondence on this topic?
Staff has not received any correspondence.
Well, I'm directly going to ask for public comment at this point. Does anyone wish to comment on the proposed code amendments?
We continue to have a Zoom audience of one, and their hand is not raised.
Okay, Gabby, I hope you're enjoying it. Okay. Staff. Yeah, that's true. No, Jennifer. Does staff have any response to the testimony? Nope. Council, do you have any other questions for staff? If there are no more questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public comment for the hearing.
I move to close the public comment for the housekeeping code amendment hearing.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The public comment part of the hearing is closed. Is there any council discussion?
Yeah, Farrah, this is the unappreciated part of city government, but I think it's important. So I commend you and your staff for doing this. It's kind of like, you got the family arriving for Christmas and you decide to look under the couch cushions, and lo and behold, what you find. So that's the corollary that I make. But when we worked on the comprehensive plan, I think the comprehensive plan was what, 30 years old. Yeah, and there was a general consensus that nothing had been done to it in 3 decades, and so that was good and bad because we kind of just put it on the shelf and left it. It was kind of good in one respect because we kind of started with a clean sheet of paper. But at any rate, it's an unappreciated aspect of things. So I want to salute you for doing it, and it's probably not fun. But I do have sort of a technical question that kind of intrigues me. Did you use AI in any of this?
Not at all. For better or worse, it was all my brain. I feel like it's VI, very intelligence. There's no one quite like you, Vera, and it takes a very special attention to detail and love of this stuff to be able to go through and find little tiny pieces that continue to be tweaked to make the code effective and work in the best interests of everyone in the city. So just we cannot thank you enough. I'll be back over a year to do this because we always miss something. So no, it's fun. This is fun. I actually really like this.
I'll share the kudos. I hope that every time you come before us, we applaud you. You've done such a good job. So, If there are no more questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public comment part of the hearing. We're already done with that. Is council ready to vote?
I move for the first and second reading by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending municipal code, Title 17 land division and the Title 19 zoning, make minor changes to select sections for the purposes of clarification and improved effectiveness file number ZA-2025-004.
Second for the motion.
Councilor Massey moves for the first and second reading by title only and adoption of ordinance amending municipal code Title 17 land division and Title 19 zoning to make minor changes to select sections for the purpose of clarification and improved effectiveness. File ZA-2025-004. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion passes unanimously. With that, we'll pass it over to our acting city manager to read the ordinance 2 times by title only.
Thank you, Council President. An ordinance in the city of Milwaukee, Oregon, amending municipal code MMC, Title 17 land division and Title 19 zoning to make minor changes to select sections for the purpose of clarification and improved effectiveness. File number ZA-2025-004. One more time. And an ordinance of the city of Milwaukee, Oregon, amending municipal code MMC, Title 17 land division and Title 19 zoning to make minor changes to select sections for the purpose of clarification and improved effectiveness. File number ZA-2025-004.
Councilor Steffenberg? Me or not? I was scared.
Councilor Steffenberg,
Aye.
Councilor Castrovilli, Councilor Massey, Council President Anderson.
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0, ordinance 2260.
With that, you might have missed it earlier, but Councilor Castrovilli has an amazing council report that he made us all wait for. So if you wanted to stay till your night, you could. If you wanted to leave, no one would forgive you. Councilor Castrovilli?
You guys are not gonna all get let down. So this is pretty cool. We're talking about food, we're talking about food insecurity. We went to the Collective Service Center, we kind of saw that, how that's going and everything, and it got me to start thinking about Wichita Center. And, because they serve our families of students, a lot of them are walk-ins. And I reached out to Stephanie Rose over at the Clackamas Foundation to talk about what Wichita Center needs in terms of what's their food pantry looking like right now. And we started talking, and we started talking about potentially doing a fundraiser to raise. Well, first we started talking about a food drive, but then she had mentioned the problem with that is you don't always get what they need. And even if you do get what they need, people who participate in the food drive tend to buy a lot of the cheap stuff off the shelves at grocery stores. And she said that can leave less items for other people that need it, that rely on those cheaper items too. So it's a little bit of a tug of war there. So she said, obviously money, fundraising funds, where then the pantry can then use those funds as they see fit. Some of the things like we initially talked about was a pallet of baby formula. So a pallet of baby formula costs about $10,000 from Costco, but baby formula is highly needed. So we started with that, and then I started moving with more, and she came back to me. So I was like, we'll talk to your people, see what it would take to kind of put this fundraising thing on. And let's see where we can be most effective. She came back, and it was really interesting what she told me. So yeah, I'm sure you guys are familiar with food pantries where families go in, they open the fridges, they take a look at what they need, they grab what they need. Well, she mentioned to me that they actually throw away a lot of food that gets bad because those fridges are not commercial fridges. So the amount of families that come in and open and close, they can't keep the cool temperature down. So they end up throwing out a lot of food because of that. So they're looking at buying 2 commercial fridges, a fridge and a freezer, that are glass. That way families can see through. You don't have to constantly open the door. cost of that is about 15 grand, which actually isn't that high. Once we start talking about, well, if we do this fundraiser, right, we could probably blow the doors off of that easily. So I talked to the mayor about it, because then I started thinking, I remember that slide that came up about all of our council budgets, and mine was not used. So I started thinking about, if we did not just a citywide fundraiser, but if we challenged other cities to do a fundraiser to try to buy this equipment for the Wichita Center, because it doesn't just serve our children here, and see if we can kind of get some sort of a countywide competition going on who can raise the most funds for the Wichita Center to buy that equipment. And one thing I offered to Ms. Rose was that I would be willing to put, since the budget's coming up, I would be willing to put a significant portion of my council budget that I have not used towards that. And I talked to the mayor about potentially about all of us as council pitching in to kick this thing off and say, hey, we're starting this fundraiser. Here's what the city of Milwaukee council is doing. What can the rest of the community come up with? And just kind of take this thing countywide and see what we can do to help the Wichita Center. Who knows? It could be something that expands to Esther's Pantry or some of the other food pantries in the county. But the Wichita Center is really excited about it. They're doing the work on their end to kind of do the logistics. And I figured I'd present it to you. The mayor is in on it. I'm not saying that we have to put a significant budget into your council budget, because I know everyone has different needs for it, maybe has a different amount. But I think mine was about like 4,800. Like, I don't mind throwing half of that towards. We're about to get a new one 6 months anyways, right? New council budget. So I'm okay with committing a significant portion of mine. And I'm just curious if the rest of the council is willing or would like to participate and kind of work together with Wichita Center to kick this thing off.
I'll contribute 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to contribute too. I was making fun of you for your council report. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, see? Who's laughing now?
I'd be happy to contribute if it's a legitimate expenditure of funds. I have a question about that. I don't know what the restrictions are on those funds. But if it's okay, I'm glad to chip in.
It's a good question, Councilor. It was one I was thinking about as Councilor Clifford was speaking. I'm not sure. We'll have our city manager follow up with Councilor Clifford at the next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I just have a couple comments because I have had questions about the use of these funds as well for a few years. And I think, the intent behind it seems to be grounded around education and training. But times have changed and funding formulas have changed and the need in our communities has also changed. So the way that I look at it is these are funds that allow us to be supportive of needs in the community and needs within the city that aren't being met. And that's how I've viewed the council budget. And happy to add more to the conversation when we get our official response from ACM Breland.
Yeah, that was actually a great question too, because that was not something that I thought about. But, yeah, if it's not, we'll figure something out. But I'm excited about this. Wichita's excited about this, and I think this could do a lot of good for our community and for the rest of our county without having to rely on the decision makers above us. Thanks.
Got a short council report as well. I don't know if any of you have seen, but there's been a development application for the Milwaukie floral site in the Lake Road neighborhood. I went to the Lake Road NDA. I live in the Lake Road neighborhood, so I will go there often and talk to some folks about this. And I wanted to share with you all some reflections on that conversation and some of the things that I'm hearing from my neighborhood about what we'd like to see going forward. I think there's real frustration. The people at the end of the day get, we need more housing, but there's a real frustration that we're losing commercial space to housing again. And if you look at the Lakewood neighborhood, I mean, we saw this map earlier today of what areas are within a half-mile watershed of different commercially zoned properties. And a lot of Lakewood access is going to lose access, or a lot of Lakewood neighborhood is going to lose access to what could have been a walking community hub. And I think people are pretty upset about this. They want to see us do something to try and preserve the mixed nature that currently exists, the non-conformant use, but recognizing the limitations of our RMD zone, where that type of mixed use activity is not permitted by right. It's a real challenge. So right now they're in talks with the developer. I know that our last neighborhood hubs to change, the developer did not want to pursue SMUs owning. I think that in light of the application and some of the restraints on the development that we're seeing, maybe that changes the calculus for him. Maybe it's something he's willing to revisit. I think that we as a city, I'd love in our future conversations to talk a little bit more about the site and thinking personally about it. If we're having a conversation about land banks and where that happens, this to me is the site that we have the potential to preserve in its commercial use, or even proactively reaching out to the owner of the site to see if they're willing to reconsider the zoning of this site. But to me, this is a real example. We have all of these land use changes that are coming, some of them dictated by the state, some of them that we've decided ourselves. And it's creating a lot of new housing supply in the city. But when we lose that type of commercial walkability, more livable neighborhoods, I think we really lose out on the potential benefits of the growth that we're seeing. And so I really challenge us all to think about, okay, how can we make sure livability remains front and center as we're seeing this growth? And I see our small mixed use designation as one of those tools in the toolbox to do this. And I encourage us with this lot in particular, because it is so unique and special for the neighborhood, to try and think of creative solutions to be able to preserve the status of the lot. Yeah.
The whole Milwaukee floor, is it just the front, just not the retail part of it?
My understanding is the whole lot is zoned RMD.
It's getting developed.
The proposal for development, Vera can speak to it, but I imagine it's the whole lot. Is Dallas?
Yeah.
Right. That's what I thought too.
It's, so there hasn't been an application for development, it's been a pre-application conference is all that's happened, at this point. So we reviewed a couple of concept drawings. It's the top little over 2.5 acres. So the two, lots closest to the river, are going to be be maintained in the current owner's, ownership. So those two houses will stay. That's everything north of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With that, we're a little past Spencer Massey's record. Semantics. I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay. Councilor Massey moves to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. That meeting is adjourned.